Block too many swings with the edge of your... Oh no. Oh no. He's repeating the myth, isn't it? There we go. Here we are. I came prepared. Let me just... Yeah. See what I mean? This is the problem with this category of videos, that I don't know what to do to stop you. There has to be a way to stop you. I just haven't figured it out yet. Because, not to mention, it should be illegal. It should absolutely be illegal for you to be able to do this to me. But here we are. The more I tell you not to comment, not to leave a like, not to frigging watch until the end, not to share, you do it. You do it. Even like at an exponential level to the power of 11. Hence, perhaps the solution could be to give you a reward, in the sense that for every 10 comments you don't leave under this video, you will receive, I don't know, a Ninja Turtle? Do you want Raph? You tell me, because this has to stop. And yet it didn't, so we are on cracked.com. As always, this is an article, apparently, about swords. Specifically lies about 15 lies about swords you probably believe because of movies. Well, let's see. So let's see if for once, maybe, I don't know, 2 out of 15. Is that too much to ask? 2 out of 15 are correct, and the other 13? Yeah, let's sharpen our knowledge a bit, shall we? Yeah. Right, swords. Good lord, do we love swords here? So far, so good. It's the coolest, most popular weapon and / or tool ever invented. Every hero worth their salt has one. Samurai, knights, Jedi... Ga. I'm sorry, what is Ga? I mean, it might be a problem for me not being a native English speaker, so if you are a native English speaker, then you could please illuminate my intellect. I don't understand what's Ga. Ga. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it throughout this entire video, by the way. I'm gonna say Ga every time they say something that is stupid. That's what I'm gonna do. Ga. All the coolest people have swords. Well, that's true. Remember that badass from Lord of the Rings, Eowyn, when she breaks out a surprise sword and kills a villain so impossibly evil, he doesn't have a face, is named the Witch King. Swords are so cool, man. Swords. We lost our minds for a little bit. Oh yeah, absolutely, I agree. That is like the most, this is, when talking about cracked.com, that is the most historically coherent, cohesive and correct statement you could have made. No hate. No, seriously, we got our toy lightsabers out and went and played in the backyard for a while. We are in no way joking, and only God can judge us. And me. And me. Anyway, we are sure you can name at least 5 epic blades off the top of your head. And yet, pervasive as swords are in popular culture, we barely know anything about them. Well, speak for yourself. I can pick anyone in this community watching right now, and this sentence wouldn't apply. Anyway, how many views did this video get? Yeah. Oh yes, we think we know a lot, but much of that is wrong. That's, yeah, I mean, I agree. With crack.com, I'd say all of it is wrong. That's what happens when you get your facts from movies, traveling bards, or websites that aren't cracked, mate. Okay, I need to expand on this. Ga, I understand you're being paid and these are your bosses. Still, cracked.com is the devil. Crack.com is the devil. The devil. ASMR. Satan, Here, let us hone your knowledge with these edgy facts. Edgy, I see, yeah, a little pun there, very nice, yeah. Katanas aren't really all that kick-ass. All the fastidious metal folding by Soulsmith wasn't to make katanas awesome, it was to compensate for the low quality steel available to forge them. So it was to make them awesome, regardless of some metallurgical problems they might have faced due to, or yeah, even if you look at it at face value, it actually is to make them awesome, because at the end of the day, it's a good sword. Katana is a good sword. Not the best sword, doesn't cut through a tank, but it's a good sword. 14. Sword fights weren't all about swords. Yes, you'd try to strike your opponent with your blade, but you'd also grab at them, punch them and kick them. The idea that these were dirty tricks comes from the 18th and 19th century. Yeah, I mean, this is not too bad. Maybe, you know, we got 15, we did 2, second one not too bad, so it's true what he's saying. I mean, yeah, they're still all about swords, because I mean, the sword is still the main thing, in the sense that if you are dueling and you have a sword, that is your primary thing, but yeah, what he's saying is not incorrect. I'm being a little pedantic here, so let me be a little pedantic. T-shirt I'll make eventually. But at the end of the day, these are all maneuvers at your disposal if, you know, a situation presents itself that it would be in fact advantageous to try and perhaps grab your opponent's weapon, grab your opponent's face, for crying out loud, grab his hand, try to control them, but then eventually still use your sword as the main way to inflict damage. But I have to say, not too bad. He must have watched some videos, because, I mean, that's good. Grabbing the blade isn't always a bad idea. Historical fighting manuals include half-swording techniques, where you grab the blade for a stronger thrust, or to use your sword as a hammer. Good, yeah, number 13 is good, look at that. So, absolutely, so what we're seeing here is very, very famous. If you've been watching this channel for a while, of course you know this, but it's called the murder stroke, or Mordhau, I believe it's pronounced, and basically, yeah, you flip the sword and use it as a blunt weapon, because you're using the pommel or the crossguard to strike instead of the blade. And the reason why you would do that is because, of course, in this case, as we can see, the guy on the right, of course, I'm talking about, is facing someone who's wearing full armor, and so good luck trying to cut through that. So in that extent, in that situation, perhaps you were using your sword regularly against people that weren't as armored, but then your enemy, your opponent, is a muppet, you know, clothed entirely encased in steel, then you might want to flip around and use it as a blunt weapon. It's a way to do it. And the guy on the left instead is doing the so-called actual half-swording, which is the way he's holding it for a stronger, more potent thrust. But of course, it's not like here, it kind of looks, if you look at this image, illustration, illumination, it might look like it's trying to penetrate the center of the breastplate, but no, most likely what's happening here is that he was going for the gaps in the armor where you would only have to deal with mail, which, I mean, if you put a strong enough thrust, and perhaps it's not the best quality mail, you might be able to go through, even though mail is not bad, it's good armor, but not all mail isn't made equal, and perhaps it got moved away, diverted, something like that. So anyways, that's correct, and he says source Scalagrim on YouTube, so of course the source is good, and therefore the information is good. Now, one of the problems, because now we're going to continue going down the line of all these lists, but one of the problem is when you repeat something that someone else says, first of all, if they make a mistake, you don't know, because you don't have the overall understanding of the topic to really notice if they're saying something wrong. And that's one problem. So in this case, he said something Scalagrim said, which was correct, so great, but it's kind of a dice roll, if you will. And that also happens, and you normally can, we'll see if that's the case, but normally you can tell when someone is saying, on the treatise, medieval treatises, they say this, but they're just repeating what someone else says, and they have never even looked at a folio, or never even tried to read the treatises themselves. Usually you can tell. So we'll see if that's the case. Number 12, you really shouldn't carry your sword on your back. Unless the sword is really short, shorter than your arm, you will just be unable to draw it. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much. All you'll get is a fully outstretched arm for your foe to hack at and no means to defend yourself. Okay, so this is something, it feels a little bit like the Community of the Sword type of topic back in like 2014, 2015, to be honest. We have talked about, like I did, a lot of other channels did, like Shadiversity, I believe, maybe Scholar Gladiatoria did, I'm not sure if Scalagrim did, but I'm pretty sure that every single one of the channels in the HEMA circle, and also more broadly, in general, the community of the sword have tackled this topic. But then again, we made so many videos and did so much experimentation that this looks like something we said earlier on, but it's not really taking into consideration some tests. Because, for example, on my channel, quite a few years ago, the first thing I said was that, like, you can't, like, if you have a big sword in the back, on your back, and you try and unsheath it, eventually you'll run out, like, the sword is still in the scabbard, your arm is fully extended, and you get stuck. But then again, there are ways to fix that, and on a separate video I actually showed that I put a full-length katana on my back and I still managed to draw it because the katana was only attached at the top and wasn't attached at the bottom, and so it was allowed to move freely, so I could move it kind of away from my back, and that allowed me to do it. So it's not necessarily impossible, like he's saying, unless the sword is shorter than your arm. It is, but only if the sword is fixed, like completely fixed on your back from bottom and top. So that's something you need to say. Let's see the source. Says fight right. Let's check it. Yeah, carrying a katana on your back. So the source where it's coming from is specifically about the katana. And interestingly enough, will you look at that, they actually show me. And they actually do show that video. Like, you see, they're showing 2 videos of mine, how to draw your sword and then sword on the back. And to be honest, yeah, on that video specifically, I actually show how to do it. So this is interesting because they must have not watched the videos, but that's strange because they are putting this as a source. So maybe they just read a couple of things, drew their own conclusions, but didn't actually watch them, because I proved that statement wrong. And when it comes to this article, well, let's have a look what they say, because putting your sword on the back is a very interesting topic, so let's say what they say. Can you really carry a katana behind your back? When I first posted this, I had no katana training thanks to Yaido at Haru Dojo. I now have a bit and hope to have more. So I have changed this a wee bit from the original post. Now it is more correct. Anywho, a katana on the back. I've been asked this question a bit, and I'm sure much of that is owed to The Walking Dead. Well, not just The Walking Dead, but yeah, in general. It's a very common feature that you see on all sorts of video games and all sorts of anime. It looks cool. Like, we have to admit that. A sword on your back, whether it be a katana, whether it be a medieval sword, a great sword, a long sword, it looks really good. But there are some technical problems when it comes to biomechanics, unless, as I was saying, you fasten it in a specific way. Traditionally, the samurai wore their katana at their side. That is correct. If they were in armor, it was worn cutting edge down. Without armor, cutting edge up. Well, that is a kind of a strange statement, because in reality it doesn't really necessarily have to do with the fact that you're wearing an armor or not. It has to do with the type of sword. So if it's a tachi, then yes, the tachi, which is kind of a longer, bigger, more curved katana with a slightly different attachment system when it comes to the number of pins that go between the hilt and to connect the hilt to the rest of the blade. The tachi was normally worn blade down, that's correct. But when it comes to the uchi katana and the katana in general, initially was worn like the tachi, but then it starts to be worn traditionally edge side up, particularly in the Edo period and even in Sengoku period. So it kind of depends on the era. I believe even in late Muromachi period, there might have been already examples of people in full armor wearing the swords edge up. So it's kind of a situation whereby it depends. It depends if you're mounted as well. Usually mounted warriors tend to have the sword edge down. I see that this comes from another article, once again, that does say that, but it's an oversimplification. Just saying that if you're in armor, you always wear the blade edge down is incorrect. It depends on the era and the sword. Other cultures had different custom, but I was specifically asked about the katana, which is Japanese. Only swords too long for the side were generally worn on the back. Good, yes, that's correct. That is actually very good statement, very nice. However, they were often carried in such a way that they weren't drawn from over the shoulders. Rather, they were carried horizontally at the belt. Okay, right, okay. Ga! Alright, so what he's saying here is true partially. So it is true that samurai, bushi in general, not just samurai, when they were carrying very big swords like the odachi, nodachi, etc., then sometimes they would carry them this way, so on the back, basically on the lower back, horizontally. But we do absolutely have iconography of samurai wearing a massive odachi completely on the back vertically. But that needs to be understood that it's for transportation. So that is, in fact, I want to say, probably one of the only exceptions in which we know that historically warriors did carry massive swords on their backs, and it was due to transportation. It was just easier to do. But then as you were entering into combat and you wanted to carry a big sword like that, then you would normally remove it from your back, maybe even unsheath it already, and then walk with it or transport it sheathed, but you carry it by hand. Once again, it's not correct to say, oh, the only case in which they did wear big swords was horizontally. No, they did. We have iconography that absolutely shows big swords being carried on the back. And then he says, but really the better question is, can you draw a sword from your back? If it's longer than your reach, then your outstretched arm won't unsheath it. But then again, I did show that it really depends on how your saya is mounted. And if your saya is loosely mounted, you absolutely can. So it's one of those situations, I suppose. I mean, it's not too bad. But what's really strange is that the person who wrote the correct article, even though they cited this specific website as a source, they didn't really read through, and also they didn't watch my videos that were linked. Thank you for linking my videos, by the way, to the source article. Also, I'd like to add one more thing, which I think could be a point of interest when it comes to the last thing he said, because he does say that if you try and draw your sword, of course, look, this happens. So now you're offering a target to your opponent that could take advantage of and cut your elbow. That's what he's saying, outstretched arm for your foe to hack at, and no means to defend yourself. So this is absolutely true. This is a target, and that's one of the reasons why oftentimes when you look at actual Japanese swordsmanship, and I would imagine similarly in HEMA, but if you're HEMA practitioners, please let me know, because I did practice HEMA, but not for that long. When you hold your sword in this stance, which is absolutely a combat stance in both Western and Eastern traditions, usually, so imagine the guard is at the height of my ear, usually you keep your elbow low. And sometimes I see people that do this, and I'm not saying that in kata it doesn't exist, but usually they're more modern kata, and when we look at the actual ancient stuff, normally the elbow is down. With that being said, I have seen people criticizing me when I was sort of reenacting a Sengoku period samurai / Ashigaru, and I was using my arquebus, so the matchlock, sort of early firearms if you will, and I was doing this. And people in the comments were telling me, no, your elbow needs to go down when you hold a firearm. And I'm like, yes, in the modern concept, in the modern idea, but we absolutely have plenty of iconography that shows us that, in fact, the default position of firearms from the period when it comes to gunners in feudal Japan is this. Their elbow is raised. So even though the statement, the comment, the critique is theoretically correct from a biomechanical standpoint, still, it's modern. And that doesn't mean that just because now we do it like this, then we have to expect every firearm all the way back to the 15th century and earlier to follow, like, for example, trigger discipline. I mean, trigger discipline is relatively new, if you think about it, and back in the 80s it wasn't that strongly pushed. I always use trigger discipline, but that's not necessarily something you have to expect on someone in the freaking 16th century. With that being said, I think one of the reasons why they didn't care about this is because, I mean, it's not like you had snipers. It's not like you had that level of precision that you would have today, and you're not, usually when you're using those sort of early firearms, you're always aiming for center of mass, which is what you should do in all cases, even in a modern period. But in general, I don't think they cared about this, because they're like, no one is gonna hit my elbow. And even if it does happen, I mean, statistically insignificant from the perspective of actual battle tactics. Anyways, number 11. A claymore isn't a two-handed greatsword. Historically, the term claymore referred to a sword with a basket hilt used by Scottish soldiers. The word only started meaning a two-handed sword in Victorian times. Now, even though there is absolutely debate on the origin of the word claymore in period, and I do tend to agree with this statement, it is important to say that museums do use it. An example of this is item 544610 at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, which is indeed classified as a claymore from the, I believe, 16th century, if I'm not wrong. I'll double check, if not I'll just write a little link here. Beautiful, beautiful specimen, and they do call it a claymore, so perhaps it's a word that now has been, I want to say, just fully incorporated, and you know how languages change over time. So they're not wrong. I just wanted to point that out, that in museums, in professional displays, the word is now accepted. Number 10, rapiers aren't light, nimble swords. That depends on the item of comparison, I suppose, but yeah. Inigo Montoya makes his sword look pretty much weightless, but historical rapiers are in the same weight range as medieval longswords, about 2.5 to 4 pounds. Yes, I would say that the general, because of course weight varies, it's always a little bit of a range, if you will, and they are giving a range anyway, so it's not too bad, but in general a rapier, I want to say, tends to have the same weight as an arming sword, but there are absolutely rapiers a little bit on the heavier side that will have the same weight as a lighter longsword. With that being said, it's still relatively light. If you think about it, a 2.5 pound sword is a light sword. Can you use it like an Olympic foil? No. But you can be very quick with a rapier. So in a way, I would describe a rapier as a nimble sword. Obviously, it's a thrust and cut sword as opposed to like an arming sword or a long sword, which is a cut and thrust, meaning that I'm doing it on purpose and, cut-centric but can still thrust. That's the long sword. Thrust-centric but can still cut. That's the rapier. Even though it is a sword that is optimized for range and it's absolutely not a foil, that's how I would describe it. Like, I think the people, what they're trying to debunk here is that in popular imagination, a rapier is like a little foil. And that's absolutely incorrect. A rapier is a full-on badass sword. It has its own weight, but I would still consider it a relatively light weapon. It's definitely not a heavy weapon that, I need to go like this, because sometimes we overcorrect, getting to a point where we state facts because we want to counter misconceptions, but then we end up creating a new one. And so I don't want you to go away from this and think, well, yeah, rapier is such a slow weapon. No, neither the longsword, nor the arming sword, nor the rapier are slow, heavy weapons, but absolutely the rapier isn't a foil. I think that's the best way to put it. Oh yeah, number 9. Oh, good. But it's not too bad though. So far, this is probably one of the best cracked articles that I've read so far, because at least they're, it's a little bit here and there. I need to be a little pedantic, but in general, the overall information isn't completely outlandish like it normally is. So I think that probably our bar of expectations has gone relatively low because of all the articles we've read over the years, thanks to you. But here we are, number 9, blood grooves aren't a thing. No matter what your frat bro told you, that groove along the blade isn't there to let the blood flow and stop the sword from getting stuck in your enemy's guts. The groove, called a fuller, exists only to make the sword lighter. Okay, well, a little bit to expand here, but he's absolutely right, and now I'm going to say something that's going to make you laugh, but he's absolutely right when it comes to the idea that that is not a blood groove. It was not called a blood groove, it was in fact called a fuller, and the purpose was absolutely not to let the blood flow from your enemy through the blade, or even worse, like some people say, to release whatever vacuum that your sword creates, and so without the fuller the sword would remain stuck. If that were the case, Roman gladi would suck at thrusting people, and instead they were absolutely fantastic for doing that, not to mention a knife. I mean, if that were the case, this whole fantasy of not only the blood groove, but the idea that you're creating a vacuum, and so some people say that your sword gets stuck in the guts, some people say the sword gets stuck in the bones, which, by the way, can happen with bones, could be a little problem, but anyways, the sword gets stuck in the flesh because it creates a vacuum. Oh my gosh, I can't it's sucking my sword in. It's so stupid. Just take a knife and try to stick through ham and you'll see what happens. It just comes out and in very, very easily. So that is absolutely not true. Not to mention that if you, this image doesn't really show this because you see the fuller because you're looking at the very strong of the blade. But if you look at the other side, so the opposite end, the business end of a sword, it's usually not fullered because the fuller doesn't go all the way up to the tip, and the portion of the blade, the sort of latter, the wick of the blade, which is usually what you stab into people. So that is absolutely nonsense. But what I was gonna tell you is that the person who's writing this knows more than this is military historian, because this guy, as I have debunked on my video, actually did mention of the blood groove and the getting stuck and that whole situation about the vacuum created, and so you need it, oh my gosh, you can't. And he was like, yeah, because then you need to twist and use the blood groove. It was so cringy, and that's a top military Roman historian. Well, this guy who wrote this article for Cracked.com, why are you even working for Cracked.com, mate? Just stop working for Cracked.com and become a top Roman military historian, because you clearly know better. Last but not least, just the only thing that I'd like to nitpick a little bit, because I mean, that's what you want me to do, isn't it? At the end they say the fuller exists only to make the sword lighter. I'd like to underline that in reality, because I've talked a little bit with metallurgists, although then again, if you are a swordsmith, please feel free to expand on what I'm about to say. But as far as I understand, not only the fuller is created to indeed make the sword blade lighter, that is one of the reasons. At the end of the day, you are removing material from the sword, but the other reason is that by doing so, it's actually making the blade stiffer, so it's making the overall structural integrity of the blade stronger. So the blade is stronger due to this specific action. And I don't know the exact scientific details as to why that happens, but it does apparently also sort of doubles down as making your blade stronger or stiffer, and at the same time even wider. Might be easier to make it wider with using less material, and of course lighter at the same time. So it doesn't only make the blade lighter, but it does have a few other purposes. Number 8. Swords don't start as molten metal. It looks rad as hell in Conan movies, absolutely, Conan is great, but real swords aren't made by melting metal and pouring it into a cast. Well, bronze swords that's exactly how you make bronze swords, mate. So I would have specified. Do that and you'll have the weakest sword ever, good only for decoration. Alright, well, it's as usual, it's very, very superficial, because that's what these articles, I mean, I imagine these articles are written in like, what, an hour, maybe less. But in general, yes, you wouldn't do it with an iron sword, although you can do that, and it's called cast iron. But normally cast iron is not great for swords, so when you're making a blade, you wanna work hard in it. That's how blades are made normally, whether it be iron or whether it be steel. Could you technically make a sword that is cast iron? Absolutely. Wouldn't be great, but you can absolutely make swords that are cast bronze, and that's how they were made. And bronze blades are great. They were fantastic, and they were used for a very long time, and the same with previous possible copper technology. So at the end of the day, it's kind of reductive as a statement. And also we need to remember that it's sometimes we do know that some maces were cast. He's talking swords, not talking maces, but then again it kind of makes it sound like, I think I would have added a caveat in there. Number 7, swords were never quenched in living people. Stick soft glowing hot metal into a bone-filled person and chances are it will bend. Even if it doesn't, you'll get an uneven cooling resulting in a cracking. So yeah, but I mean, the illumination here is just a guy being murdered. So I'm not sure if that's a good example of that, and I don't even know who's saying that anyways. Number 6, oh, that's a good one. That's another point for this guy. This guy's good. Number 6, sai aren't small swords. Absolutely. Sai don't have a sharp edge, correct, and a point. They don't have a point. They are blunt weapons used to bludgeon people or defend yourself against other people's swords, particularly in conditions where, because in general, I would take a katana over sai any day. Now, I know if you're a practitioner of Okinawa Kobudo, you might say, no, I disagree, I think sai are great. Yes, but they probably need a lot of training to be able to face like a trained individual with a katana, and you're both without armor, you're using sai, and you want to, block it, parry it, and twist it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying I would bet money on the trained samurai with a katana over the person with a sai, because I think it's just easier, and at the end of the day, you need to hit him really well to hurt him with sai, precisely because of the fact that they are blunt, whereas with a katana, even if you do a light cut, it could still hurt your opponent more easily. It is true that sai were used, particularly in situations where it was illegal for people who weren't samurai, like it was the case in Okinawa, to carry swords, and so they carried these so that they could, use them, and also to defend themselves in case something happened, and also they were used sometimes for policing purposes. You can absolutely kill someone with sai, it's just you wouldn't stab them, you would bludgeon them to death. Number 5, two-handed swords aren't impossibly heavy. That's correct. While not exactly the lightest weapon around, the typical two-hander weighs 5 to 7 pounds, well, some even less, to be honest. I mean, as you yourself said, further up, average 7 pounds, I don't know about that, and isn't as unwieldy as its size might make it look. That's true, because of leverage, it's a lever. Much heavier swords were made, but those were ceremonial. You didn't just say they were ceremonial to me, did you? I'll refer you to this video. But yeah, in general, this is okay. It's an okay point. Great swords aren't medieval, or in the sense like Renaissance, sure. Two-handed great swords became a thing in the late 1500s, during the Renaissance, not the Middle Ages. Terms like Zweihander are even more recent and weren't used historically. Well, these are two completely separate facts, also because, I mean, a Zweihander just means two-hander, so a longsword is a Zweihander. And whether it was a period term or not, longswords were absolutely medieval, so it's kind of, I think if someone reads this might be a little confused, and also that's a Lord of the Rings sword. Number 3, sword duels didn't work like in the movies, depending on the movie. There are a couple of movies that are okay, but in general I agree with you. Block too many swings with the edge of your... Oh no. He's repeating the myth, isn't it? Gah! Going too well. We had 3 to go, come on. I was hoping. Block too many swings with the edge of your blade and you'll end up with a blunt, broken sword. That's why medieval and Renaissance fighting manuals devote exactly 0 time to such parries. Alright, did you remember when earlier on, this is literally, I've been prophetic. I'm a prophet on this video. Did you know how earlier on in the video I told you oftentimes when people write these articles, you can tell they mention the treatise because it makes you sound like you know what you're talking about, but they never opened one. This is such case, because when he says Renaissance fighting manuals, which I don't know why he would focus on Renaissance since the majority of manuals are medieval anyways, but whatever, devote exactly 0 time to such parries. Yeah, the whole Bolognese tradition, the Bolognese sauce, La Spada Bolognese, it's full of instances where you are specifically told to parry with the edge, to meet your opponent's edge with your edge. This whole idea that, oh no, you're supposed to only parry with a flat, I mean, there might be situations in which you would, but in a lot of cases, you're not supposed to parry with a flat. You are exactly instructed, in the very treatises that he hasn't read, to parry with the edge. And one of the obvious pointers when it comes to this is, look at the medieval sword. Let's imagine it as a profile right here, right? The guard of the sword is facing in the same direction as the blade, the edge, right? Because this is the sword with the cross guard. If you were supposed to parry with a flat, right? So you're parrying it, the blade goes down. What is the crossguard going to do unless it's in the same direction? It's not going to block and prevent the sword to slide down and cut you and keep cutting or being a danger. So when the blade is edge facing you, the crossguard is also facing the same direction. So if you do this and then the opponents, they usually tend to bite into each other, but it might happen that the blade slides down, but the crossguard is there to block it. So that already in its very construction is very telling of the fact that you were absolutely supposed to parry with your edge. Now, this idea that you end up with a broken sword, well, yes, if you take a sword into a battle in the same way that you take your armor, and yeah, it will get hit, your sword will get hit, some places will be chipped away. I mean, if you have a very good sword, you're very rich and your sword is excellent, and you're fighting someone who hasn't got the same quality of sword, well, it's their problem now, not yours. So once again, it's very circumstantial, but in general, if you're going to war, your equipment will get damaged and there is no way around that. But what's important to say is that in general, swords are the elements within a medieval battle that are the most hardened. If you put in comparison from a metallurgical standpoint, the type of metal that was used for armor and the type of metal that was used for maces and then the type of metal that was used for swords, what you'll notice is that when you look at the actual Rockwell scale of hardness, then swords tend to be the weapons that utilize the best steel, and also they tend to have high carbon steel and they tend to be heat treated. Whereas when it comes to armor, even though there are examples of full plate armor that was high carbon, usually was a mistake though, because high carbon for armor, because of the shape it has, might make it brittle, and that's not what you want. But in general, armor in the medieval period could be iron, could be low carbon steel, and could be medium carbon steel, and of course heat treated medium carbon steel for people that had the money. But in general, your sword will outperform the majority of metal that it will encounter. I don't think medieval people would worry too much about their swords getting a little dent here and a little chipping there. Also because, I mean, if you're a knight, you're a professional, and you have a very good sword, you expect it. Of course you want to cut flesh with it, but if you're fighting someone and you try to go for the throat, but they move and your sword ends up hitting the mail, it is what it is. It is supposed to hit stuff, and oftentimes it can be hard stuff, like a shield, for example, and that's just how it is. So this is completely wrong, and it clearly is the opinion of someone who has no idea whatsoever when it comes to medieval sources, specifically the treatise that they mention. Number 2. Iron swords didn't replace bronze swords because they were better. There wasn't much of a quality difference between bronze and iron weapons. Iron swords, however, were much easier to make as iron ore was readily available everywhere. Okay, so well, I do have a dedicated video of iron versus bronze. This is the thumbnail, and you'll find a link in the description below. The point that he's making is very similar to the point that I made there, in the sense that it is true that in general, this idea that, bronze swords are tier 2 and then iron is tier 3, and therefore, an army equipped with iron swords will destroy and break all the weapons used by an army equipped with bronze swords, and that's why, okay, that's like a very RPG mechanic oriented thought. The reality is there isn't that much of a difference in terms of performance. They're very different as metals, but there isn't much difference in terms of performance between a bronze blade and an iron blade. The difference in general is that you will be able to make it longer, if that's one of the things you want to do, more easily than with a bronze blade, which usually, due to the fact of the way it's manufactured, will be kind of, you can't make it too long, otherwise it might break more easily. But in general, iron isn't superior to bronze. Steel is, and we do have to consider that some early Etruscan blades, as I've discussed on this other video today, I'm linking lots of videos, were in fact low carbon steel. Even and some Roman blades were low carbon steel. But then again, you know, steel is the outperformer. Wrought iron, or iron in general, isn't that much better than bronze, but the difference is the fact that, as he says, it's easier rather than to make, but to find the ore. It's easier because in order to make an iron sword, you just need iron. Therefore, if you have access to an iron mine, as a Roman Empire, Roman Republic, then you're like, okay, we've got the iron mine, make the swords, make the armor. But if you want to make bronze, you need two constituents. You need copper and you need tin, or copper and arsenic in the earlier examples. But then again, eventually arsenic was a problem because it was toxic and it was pretty much killing the smiths. So that's where we get the god Vulcano, and the reason why he's limping, because that's, you know, muscle atrophy was actually one of the problems with handling and creating very toxic arsenical bronze, almost as toxic as some of the people I get sometimes in the comments. Never to that level though. But when we are talking about the more traditional bronze that we associate with, so copper and tin, then very rarely in nature you'll have a node containing copper geographically near a mine with tin, a tin deposit. In fact, they're usually very far away, and that's one of the reasons why the Romans needed to control certain areas, and it was very, very important, whether it be in Spain, whether it be the tin deposits in Britannia. These, you need access to both. So there is all the manufacturing that goes, all the transportation. So iron was indeed much easier as a technology to utilize, particularly when it comes to mass production for the army, than bronze, because of how you make it. Number one, swords don't go swing when you draw them. Gosh, I feel like I'm back to like early Metatron content. To get that dramatic sound, you'd need a metal sheath, and not minding that all the scrapping will blunt your edge. Drawing from a leather or wood sheath barely makes any sound. Source Scholar Gladiatorial on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, that's correct. In the majority of medieval swords, scabbards do not have a metal tip or kind of lip at the edge. So it's true, swords don't make a sound in that case. Katana usually don't make a sound because it's lacquered wood. There are some like late swords, like, in the sense that like early modern era, that do have metal scabbards, and those, like for example sabers, sometimes have those, and they will make the swing sound. So saying that all swords don't do it, it's actually incorrect. But for the type of swords that they're showing here in the picture, I say it's a Viking sword, then yes, those wouldn't have made that sound, and it was kind of a silly thing that we have in early Hollywood cinema, I guess, just to make it sound cool. Because it does sound cool when you draw your sword and it goes shing. I mean, even in early video games, Oblivion, I think, had that sound. I think they removed it in Skyrim, or maybe it still makes it in Skyrim. But yeah, so that's the end of the article. I have to say, a few points were pretty bad, but the majority were okay, and a couple were even good. So maybe today wasn't too bad when it comes to what we found, and I think this person is clearly someone who at least knows more than the average person, and must have watched videos from the community of the sword. As we can see, he had both Scholar Gladiatorial and me in some of the sources. But one of the problems with when it comes to talking about these topics is that if you just repeat what someone else says, but you don't really fundamentally understand where they're coming from, and you're just repeating it, then sometimes you might misunderstand it, or other times you might repeat something that in fact maybe that person covered again on a different video and showed exceptions that you're not aware of. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I absolutely didn't, and I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel. Don't leave any comments, please don't like, and thank you very much. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.